To education policy today. We've got a very busy agenda with probably a lot to talk about. And so before we begin, I'm going to ask Representative Drummond to open us in prayer.
May we bow our heads. Oh, Heavenly Father, it's once again that we come before your throne of mercy. Father, we come with hearts of thanksgiving, thanking you for this day. Father, as we deliberate on these issues that are facing our students, our communities, our families. Father, let us be deliberative. We pray for each member that's under the sound of our voice that's on education policy. We pray for our chair. And Father, we pray that we do what your will be done. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. We're going to call this meeting to order, and I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Representative Collins.
Here.
Representative Baker. Here. Representative Drummond. Here. Representative Daniels. Representative DuBose. Representative Estes. Here. Representative Fincher. Here. Representative Gidley. Here. Representative Gray. Here. Representative Hoke-Jones. Here. Representative Morris. Here. Representative Paramore. Here. Representative Pascal. Here. Representative Smith. Here. Representative Woods. A quorum is present.
Thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate it. I'm going to recognize Vice Chair Baker to recognize.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'm proud to present 2 pages I have from my home district. Actually, so if you'll stand, Harrington Hobbs, he's a senior at Tierra Miller High School in Bruton, and Sarah Page Schultz, who's a sophomore at Tierra Miller High School in Bruton. They're paging with me this week. Very proud to have them. We actually have a very lot of close connections. We attend the same church, First Baptist Church in Bruton and such. But anyway, just a lot of connections with them, and look forward to having them the rest of this week paging. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to go a little out of order because some of our speakers, it's getting down to the end, and they've got to be in different committees. So first, we're going to call up House Bill 210, Representative Ingram.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee. Appreciate letting me go. I've got next door judiciary, another bill. But this bill is pretty simple. This is to where we allow, or we have to mandate, we're mandated to let the illegals to come in to go to school K through 12, and we pay it at our taxpayers. This bill would allow them, if they have completed school in Alabama or completed school here in the United States, and they're going to pay for their college, and they've applied for legal status, had to apply for legal status to be able to attend a college in the state of Alabama. We're only one of 2 schools or states in the union that don't allow them to attend a college. And this, I don't know of any opposition on this bill. We've vested it with the universities and everybody.
Thank you, Representative Ingram. It's very important to the people in my area, too. I've heard from several. Are there any questions for Representative Ingram? Representative Morris.
I just have one little simple question. I just want to know what is, when they say aliens,
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
So if they're illegal, they've come into the country illegal and they've applied for legal status, that would make them that category until they're legal.
Illegal immigrants?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, I was just checking. I just saw aliens.
But these would have to applied for legal status and gone to school in the United States. And that's, like I say, we have to pay for their school K through 12, and now they want to go to invest into our community and go to work. A lot of them are going to other states to go to college, and they end up working there at other states.
Representative Drummond.
Would you, I hate that word alien too. I'm not opposed to the bill, but
This is some of the language from the original bill that was passed in 2010.
But would you be opposed to just amending it to say immigrants? Because that's what they are, right?
As far as legally, I don't know. I'd have to yield that to somebody else. I don't know that, if we can change that language, because we passed this in 2010.
I remember.
And this is reverting part of that back.
And I remember that was one of my regrets, that I wanted to say we need to just say what they are, an immigrant.
And we can do that on the floor, but at short notice of this, I would have to say, I don't know how it would affect the bill, to be honest with you.
I would just say it refers back to line 34, where it's already listed like that in the current law, and I think that's why they've used that language here.
And this only applies to them and not their children who may or may not, who may have been born in the United States, correct?
That's right. If they're born in the United States, they're citizens. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. I see a motion from Representative Paramore and a second from Representative Woods. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The bill is given a favorable
Thank you,
report.
Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Next, we're gonna call up House Bill 290. I think I saw the sponsor here.
Madam Chairman and members of the committee, pertaining to sudden cardiac arrest, under existing law, each student athlete and his or her parents must sign and return a form acknowledging the receipt and a review of an information sheet about the warning signs of sudden cardiac arrest. Also under existing law, each coach of an athletic activity must complete a training course about cardiac arrest, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and the use of an automated external defibrillator, AED. This bill would require each local board of education and governing body of a non-public school to develop and implement a cardiac emergency response plan. This bill would require the plan to include appropriate AED placement within each school, staff, training, and other recommendations of the American Heart Association or another similar group. The bill would also authorize the State Board of Education to adopt rules relating to cardiac emergency response plans. A cardiac emergency response plan is a written document that establishes specific steps to reduce deaths from cardiac arrest in school settings and student athletic activities. A plan outlines training requirements and the responsibilities required to execute a timely response to a cardiac emergency. This bill ensures that every Alabama school has a cardiac emergency response plan coordinated with local EMS that includes the CPR-trained team, appropriately placed and maintain AEDs and practice drills, and requires the same for all athletic activity plans. Every year, 23,000 children have a cardiac emergency outside of a hospital. And at this time, with Madam Chairman's permission, I'd like to invite a speaker.
Yes. I'd like. Would you introduce her?
And Heather Anderson, and she has a story to share that I think y'all will appreciate.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. So I am a mom, and I'm a nurse, so both of these are very close to my heart. In 2006, my family, we lived in Florida at the time, we were home in Gadsden, and my son, John Wesley, I'm going to put a face to a name. So this is John Wesley. He was 9 years old, just your typical little boy. He played soccer, he played football, he played baseball. He had sports physicals, you know, as needed to play and participate in sports. So we were home and he was tossing football with my husband and his grandfather in the front yard on a beautiful Thanksgiving weekend Saturday, and he collapsed. Before EMS could arrive with a defibrillator, CPR was started, and sadly, John Wesley did not survive. So it's very important to me as a mom to make sure that our schools are safe and that we have defibrillators placed in our schools, but it's even more important to me to make sure that we have staff that's trained, that we have a program and a process in place, that people know what to do when there's a cardiac emergency. They know where the defibrillators are located, and we have a process and a plan in place. So children like John Wesley will have a greater chance of survival. When a defibrillator is used, when it's not used, your chance of survival decreases 10% every minute. So you can imagine 5 minutes, 6 minutes. That's a high percentage. So I would just ask you to support this bill, and I just thank you so much for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Representative Gidley.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment to bring to this bill. This is a friendly amendment. If this is the time to address that. This would simply replace line 39 on page 2 with the following. This act shall be known and may be cited as the John Wesley Foster Act for the purposes of this act, the following, and then it will continue. So if the
Friendly amendment, I would appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we have an amendment offered. Do I hear a second? Second by Representative Pascal. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The amendment is added. Representative Paramore?
I'll second your motion, but I just had one comment because I listened to the mom, and I have a neighbor. Sorry. I have a neighbor who's similar, but thankfully that child did not pass away. So I just wanted to ask Representative Oliver, all of the schools that are receiving, you have non-public schools, those are schools that are receiving public dollars? I hope so, because I just think that this is something that needs to be done in all educational institutions.
I appreciate that.
So will there?
I would have to ask ADPH to give a truthful answer to that question. I'll have to get that for you.
Yeah. Well, particularly I'm thinking of all of those schools. We just passed the CHOOSE Act, which is monies will be going to public-private schools.
Well, it reads non-public as well.
Okay, so those schools will be included as well?
That's what the bill says.
All right, thank you.
Representative Paramore?
Thank you. Ms. Drummond, I didn't want to jump in front of you on the amendment, but someone with personal experience in this category, I move to give this bill a favorable report.
And I'll second.
We have a motion by Representative Paramore, and a second by Representative Drummond. Are there any more questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The bill is given a favorable report as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you for speaking with us, Ms. Anderson. Next, we're going to call up House Bill 91.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. If you'll recall, I know we've had several breaks in the action here, but several weeks ago we held a public hearing in regards to House Bill 91, which relates to the opportunity for Alabama High School Athletic Association teams to play non-affiliate teams, which in this case would be independent schools in the state of Alabama. This opportunity would be something that the two schools would agree upon, and then they would schedule and have a game or match. It would not lead to any impact on playoffs or championships or anything like that. We're simply looking for ways to provide children with opportunities to compete in sports. I want to address a couple of things. As you recall, we had Mr. Alvin Briggs was with us at that public hearing, and we have met with them several times, as we stated in that meeting. We had held our bill to this day because they were having a meeting today in which they would have the opportunity to vote to change their bylaws to adopt this practice, which I think was his intent. However, this morning, two things occurred. One, their board, this proposal, and two, Mr. Briggs announced his retirement this morning in that meeting. And I've passed out a document that I think all of you have. All we're really looking for at the very bottom of this page, there's three notes there. The first note states, any out-of-state opponent must be a member of its state high school athletic association or a National Federation of State High School Associations member for NFHS or NFHS affiliate member. So what they're saying here is Alabama High School Athletic Associations can compete against any school in the country that satisfies any of these requirements. However, this morning, the AHSAA board voted against allowing the independent schools to become an affiliate member, which then excludes the independent schools in the state of Alabama from competition.
Only in the state of Alabama.
Right,
Those
because
outside the state of Alabama.
The other states around us, their state associations have authorized the independent schools to be an affiliate member. Our state association has not, which means that, in essence, any Alabama High School Athletics Association school in our state can cross the state lines and play anybody they want, but they can't play people in their own neighborhood. So that is what our primary objective is with this. I think that in the end, there are certainly opportunities for more competition for these children in closer proximity to one another, so that middle schools aren't having to travel 1.5 or 2 hours for a 45-minute volleyball match. And so that's what we're looking to do here, and that's what this bill does. And so regrettably, we're at this point now, but I hope that you will see the vision of this and the opportunity it presents and move this bill forward. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I would like to say that we actually put off voting on this to give them a chance. We thought they would. That was our intent. And so are there any questions for the sponsor? Representative Gidley.
Representative Stubbs, just,
Yes.
I'm not opposed to anything. I'm just, I know, I just learned about some of this just
Yeah.
a few moments ago, earlier. Given these sudden changes here, does your bill still accomplish what its original goal was? I mean, and I'm asking from a point of total, complete misunderstanding. I don't know anything about this. So
Absolutely. So, when I filed the bill, which was before the session started, I was approached by Mr. Briggs, and we've had several meetings during that time, and they expressed a desire to change it administratively, which I completely respect because they want to remain autonomous. And so this particular statement here that I just referenced is what we were hoping they would amend in their meeting today, which they hold it annually. And that was kind of the goal we were looking for. If that had happened, we wouldn't be here today. I probably would have just not even been on the agenda. So to answer your question, yes, my bill, because the administrative approach was not successful, then the bill
So, in other
will.
words, what you're saying is, had that been successful, you really would not even have needed this bill.
Absolutely.
Is that what we're saying? Okay, all right.
And that's why we
That brings a
allowed
little clarity to
that
me,
time.
okay.
Yes.
Representative Morris.
So you said the schools would actually have to agree to this, right? So it's not mandatory that they play each other. They would have to actually agree to play.
Absolutely. We're not mandating anything. We're just providing that opportunity. And many Black Belt, rural Alabama, even moving up here into Elmore and Autauga County, there are independent schools, and they are maybe 10 minutes away from a public school. And so them seeking, just communicating between the coaches for the next year, hey, we've got a gap in our schedule. We would like to have a softball game. And they communicate that. This authorizes that and allows them to do that. Of course, still referees, we're not talking about something that's unsanctioned. But it doesn't go towards their playoffs or anything. So we really envision this being middle schools.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Hope Jones.
Well, it just concerns me that it takes, quote, an act of Congress to get adults to play nice in the sandbox. Because that's about what this boils down to, because the kids just want to play. And you and I have talked about it. I mean, they just want to play, the team up the street, across the creek, whatever the deal is. And it's just concerning that it has gotten all the way to this point. So I'm sorry for what you have had to go through and what we have to go through to actually legislate something like this. I do have a question as far as the independents are concerned. Does it filter all the way down to the facilities, the coaches, the entire organization?
In terms of competition? Yeah, so it would not be, most students in elementary school, they play at the YMCA or something like that. This certainly would just be middle school, junior varsity, and varsity level sports. So, and there may be a few instances where varsity level sports would come into play maybe volleyball or some sports where there's I don't think any coaches are going to voluntarily choose to play a game with somebody that they're going to get beat 50-0. I mean, but if they're looking for additional opportunities to maybe get more kids to play, maybe they have athletes who aren't getting to play in a game. Now you have an opportunity to schedule a match or a game where it doesn't count towards your playoffs, but now you're getting more kids the opportunity to get on the court or the field. And so it would be middle school, junior varsity, and varsity.
Do I hear a motion? Oh, Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Stubbs, thank you for your work on this. I know that you've been quite diligent in trying to bring the two parties together somewhat, the AISA as well as the Alabama High School Athletic Association, and trying to navigate through this. Just a couple of things that I guess just for clarity, I guess I did not, and forgive me for not having asked this in previous discussion, but one of the things that was brought to light was about that already the Alabama High School Athletic Association members can already engage in contests against schools out of state. But what I failed to ask was the question, because I do understand that actually, I guess, within the what's already existing in statute, and that would be that these are within the policies of the Alabama High School Athletic Association, that these be members of the National Federation, of Athletic Association, then schools, the high schools, and on such. So that's what I failed to ask earlier. So these independent, when I say the independent schools, say Mississippi, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, that our state, it could be elsewhere that they engage in, are these all then national high school then affiliated or not? Are they just independent? For example, then within the AISA, I don't know how many of those actually are members of the National High School Association. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
you understand what my question is?
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer your question, an individual school cannot join that association as an affiliate member. The organization itself has to join. For the Alabama Independent School Association to be recognized as an affiliate member on the national level, it has to go to, first they have to get a letter of endorsement from their local or from their state organization, the AHSAA. Then it goes to a regional, then it goes to a national. Well, the Alabama Independent School Association has applied for that numerous times over the last decade, and every time it gets stopped in the process. And so it either gets stopped at the state level or at the regional level. But the schools in the other states, Mississippi, for example, their association, their state association, has supported their independent school association to become national members, which then allows them to satisfy this requirement. And so they are part of the national association in other states, the independent schools are, because they had the support of their state association.
Thank you for helping me to remind me and refresh me on that. I'm still a little bit troubled, as I've expressed my opinion before. Then I'm very just reluctant in my general approach that I've used on the NCAA on the national level, and that I don't feel like Congress should be intervening and somewhat in making mandates, whether it be the playoff system or whatever it would be. And I'm very much like Accord on that on the state level in regards to I don't feel that we as the legislative body should be getting out of our lane and getting into the turf of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. But that doesn't mean, in trying to be objective, there's not then sort of some caveats or maybe exceptions here and there where one maybe has to stray from their normal then posture. So having said that, I'm still just, concerned with this going forward, knowing that the board, the makeup of the board for the Alabama High School Athletic Association includes private schools. And some people think, well, it's just the public schools making that decision. It's not. It's a combination of both private and public schools that have made this decision, and that is not to move forward with that. So anyway, I'm just expressing out loud then a little bit of why there's some reluctance on my part on this, but I do fully understand in you bringing the bill.
And I'll just add there, I appreciate you saying that. There are 19 times in the Alabama State Code where the AHSAA is referenced, so this has certainly been done before where there have been involvement. And AHSAA administrative members are all members of the retirement systems of Alabama. So I think there is some link there that that I feel allows us to participate in the process, and hopefully we'll all remember that while we're having these conversations, we're really talking about a 13 and 14-year-old boy playing a baseball game. So, any other questions?
Representative Smith.
I think to further clarify what Representative Baker has said, and that we've said in a previous hearing, there is a procedure by which the private schools can become part of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Even in your reference there, you tell about private schools that have met that requirement to be in the High School Athletic Association. And with that in mind, what is the reluctance of a private school becoming a member of the Alabama High School Athletic Association?
Well, I think there's certainly private schools all across the state, and we know that those private schools all have their own objectives and what they're trying to accomplish. And some private schools have become very large. We can all name some probably maybe in your district or near you that have become very large. But that doesn't come without controversy. They continually are frustrated with the multiplier factor that forces them to play in different divisions when they go to the AHSAA. So there are differences in the way those private schools are treated when they join the AHSAA. Now, them choosing to do that independently is their choice. Their board can make that decision and they can go and join the AHSAA. Then they're subject to all of those requirements and the things that the AHSAA would mandate. There's another group of schools in the state, specifically the Alabama Independent Schools Association, which that group of schools would prefer not to do that for their own reasons, because they are a private school and there's an association that exists that allows them to play competitively against other schools that are comparable in size, comparable in the sports that they participate in. And so I think that our objective in the state legislature is not to funnel everybody into one association and require everybody to do the same thing as everybody else. If there's a group of our constituents that choose to participate in the Independent School Association, then we should provide them that opportunity. And I believe, and I've told this to the AHSAA, if they will allow this to happen, who's to say that 10 years from now, they won't all join together? Right now, all the AHSAA does is create a divide between the two systems. They have an opportunity to bring them together by allowing them to see and play against one another, and then, that may occur where they all choose to affiliate.
Okay, to further ask a question, then, or maybe make a statement, there is a choice now. The schools make a choice as to whether to be in the High School Athletic Association or the Independent School Association. And you mentioned the divisor that they use to classify those schools when they come in. Can you tell me what the major reason for having that divisor is?
Well, the reason for having that divisor is that the Alabama High School Athletic Association views those private schools as, although their numbers are smaller, views them as being more competitive or at a higher level, so they play at a higher level.
I would disagree with you on that. I would say the major reason is because they recruit. And when you recruit athletes and you actually pick out, for example, if I had a young man at Billingsley when I was principal, they would recruit him from the public school, but his sister in the 6th grade, which they didn't want, they wouldn't recruit them. They would even go to the fact that they would pay their tuition to get them to come play in that private school association. So there's a real difference between the Independent School Association and the public schools, and that's the reason the Alabama High School Athletic Association, I think, is held fast to their, and they listened and they tried to work, but I don't think it's something that's as cut and dried as well, we're just going to play junior high games, and it's convenient because of distance.
Well, I would submit that recruiting goes both ways. My children go to a private school in Elmore County, and they have 19 boys on the football team, 3 of which moved to the public school this year from the private school because they were recruited by the public school coaches to come and play for them. So I think we can talk all day long about recruiting. It goes on both ways, and the objective of this bill is not recruiting. We just passed the CHOOSE Act in this legislature. There's going to be a lot of things to discuss in the future, but this particular bill, there's no intent there.
Representative Estes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Representative Smith, for making some points that I no longer have to make, because I think there is a reason why there's a divisor or multiplier for private schools. And I think if you look at numbers, and I know that's not what we're here today to discuss, but since the representative brought up, I'll just add a little something to that. There's a disproportionate share of state championships won by private schools because there is an advantage built into their process. But I guess what I really want to do is just make a point more so than have a question. We're talking about, if I'm reading this sheet you've provided us with, and I do appreciate all your work, by the way, because I can't imagine how much time you've invested in trying to bring the parties together to some kind of civil middle ground. I think you're right in the fact this is going to be more softball, baseball, things like this. I'm looking at Mr. Hollingsworth here as a former superintendent, a former coach, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see this being a big factor in football games because we're talking about how it could not be brought into play in terms of playoffs. Everybody plays 7 or 8 region games, and if there's a tie for region champion or others, when they determine seeding, they go to their non-region games to help break those ties. And so you're not going to take a risk playing someone in the AISA in the football season because it could really mess you up in terms of earning a regional championship on the football field or determining your seating even further down the line for the playoffs. So I think you're right in the extent this could affect other sports. I don't see it having an impact in football.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate you saying that, and I think that you're absolutely correct. And, you know, again, just opportunities for children.
Representative Daniels.
So was there any type of plan to join, offer? I think there was a plan years ago for them to be able to kind of join together. And then the other question, and I'll let you answer.
Yes, sir.
Is that can the private school, the association can join the current association? Is that correct?
Yeah, there have been discussions in the past and opportunities for the AISA to basically fold into the AHSAA. And as was stated earlier, I think that it is an independent school association. They choose to have their own association, and they made the decision collectively to not join as a body. Now, individual schools have made the decision because they achieve a certain, one example that just happened, Lee Scott Academy in Auburn. Lee Scott Academy, phenomenal baseball team, lots of other really good sports. They made the decision in the last, I think, 18 months or so to move to the AHSAA. The competition level that they were facing in the AISA wasn't the level that they were seeking. And so they made the decision as an individual school to make that change. That's their decision to make. But there are dozens of other schools that haven't achieved that status or haven't wanted to make that decision. And so they remain in the AISA.
Okay, and it appears that, I mean, of course, they serve the same communities, of course. So the AISA, so what's been the issue? Is there something that's driving this? I know that every time that there is a problem on the surface that when legislation is brought before us, there's always some underlining or underpinning thing that's really causing this. And is there no way to work it out at that level?
Well, one of the primary issues that's becoming in all schools is travel. So a junior high team might have to travel. And many of you probably have, some of your varsity football teams are driving 2 hours to play a region game. And you wonder, how is that even in my region? Why am I having to drive that? Well, Friday nights aren't a big deal. because there's no school Saturday. But if you're playing one of the other sports where you play on Tuesday night, Thursday night, having to travel a far distance on a bus to come home at 11 o'clock at night to get up and go to school the next day is a problem. So that was kind of part of the issue in the beginning, was we're having to travel, the expense of travel and the time of travel. And then moving forward, looking at, well, how can we provide more opportunities within these communities for them to play against one another? They all go to church together. They do all these things together. Then why can't they play one another? And so that the beginning of it was that. But it's also a sandbox issue.
Okay, and so with those, so travel, I heard travel and I heard opportunities, and those are the two things that's causing.
Well, those are the two things that brought the Independent School Association to recognize that we are driving literally past all of these schools to go play a game or match. And why are we bypassing all of that when there may be an opportunity to play there? There's a school in Elmore County. There's 4 public middle schools in the AHSAA within 15 miles. Why can't we have a county junior high volleyball championship and all the schools participate? I mean, these are the kind of things that, the opportunities that are there.
And my final point is, are both association, are their rules the same?
The rules for participation are, there may be differences in the ages. Like in AISA, 6th graders can play at the junior high level, and mostly that's because of numbers, because they simply don't have enough kids. The rules for sports, I mean, we're not, it's not Canadian football. It's not, I mean, we're not playing different rules. Everything, all of those rules are the same. Times of games, all of those types of things are the same. And again, both parties have to agree to do this. We're not saying that we're forcing anybody to do something. And I would submit that Mississippi probably has different rules. Tennessee probably has different rules. You can go down the list, but we're more than willing to allow our AHSAA schools to go play them at any time.
But we're dealing with Alabama, Troy.
Right, and we
realize
intentionally
that. That's what I
excluded.
wanna focus on
We
Alabama.
intentionally excluded Alabama in this. That's why I brought those up, because there's an intentional exclusion of Alabama. If we are willing to allow our schools to play other states who have their own bylaws, their own everything, all their own rules, then we should not be, in our communities, we should not be excluding our own schools.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To piggyback a little bit on Leader Daniels and I guess his question that he had just a moment ago, sort of what seemed to be maybe the impetus or driving force, I mean, for the genesis of this bill, and giving just sort of a personal, then speculative opinion, it appears that maybe the AISA, then schools would be the ones that would benefit more greatly, although there would be benefits to both associations on this. That is, as you've already mentioned, alluded to, the scheduling. Even within the Alabama High School Athletic Association, there's still, even regionally, there's still some great distances of travel and such. So I do recognize those schools would benefit as well. But anyway, just making sort of a personal speculative observation, then it does appear that a lot of this would have generated from the AISA, which seems to be a little bit, and don't mean this to be defaming in any way, but seems to be somewhat of a shrinking entity in regards to the number of schools that some which continue to move over into the Alabama High School Athletic Association, then to become members, as you've already identified, with Lee Scott Academy and such. So, but anyway, just making an observation there. There's gain on both sides, but I think that it seems that the AISA would be the ones that would have the bigger gain in this.
Right, and I'm not going to dispute that, but it takes two to tango. That school has to find a partner school to play, and if the AHSAA schools say we're not going to play, then they don't have to play. I think if you put two of those teams together that live in the same community, you put them in a gym, you publicize it, you'll have a bigger gate at that game than you do when you drive 2 hours and maybe the parents go to the game because the other parents have to work and can't even drive 2 hours to go watch their kid play. So I think there's
I do
great
not disagree.
opportunities there.
Right. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Representative Fincher.
If there's no other debate, I would like to make a motion that the bill be given a favorable report.
We have a motion for a favorable report from Representative Fincher, a second from Representative Wood. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The bill is given a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to call House Bill 329, Representative Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. House Bill 329, it relates to Jacksonville State University. Under existing law, the membership of the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees includes 2 at-large members, one of them who resides within the state and one of whom resides out of state. This bill would increase and revise the at-large membership of the board to include 4 at-large members who reside either within or outside of this state.
Are there any questions for the sponsor?
I move to give the bill a favorable report.
Representative Gidley, I believe, has an amendment.
Yes, we have an amendment to this House Bill 329. Should I share the amendment?
Yes, please.
Okay. Replace line 12 on page 1 with the following. Members, 2 of whom reside within this state, 2 of whom reside out of this. Replace line 23 on page 1 with the following. 4 at-large members, 2 of whom reside within this state and 2 of whom reside outside of course, would be the state. Replace lines 36 and 37 on page 2 with the following. The state, 2 at-large members from this state, 2 at-large members from another state. Replace line 57 through 58 on page 3 with the following. This act shall become effective immediately.
We have a motion to amend a bill. Do I hear a second? Second. Second by Representative Paramore. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The bill is amended. Are there any other thoughts on the questions on the bill? Representative Drummond?
I move to give the bill a favorable report.
Second.
Second from Representative Fincher. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The bill is given a favorable report.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
Very
Thank
much.
you, committee.
Next, I'm going to call up House Bill 373. We had a discussion on it last week, if you remember, and we've worked on that. You have a sub in front of you, and I'll let the sponsor explain the sub.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the recognition. As stated, this bill was before this committee on last week. Some work has been done on it. Some of the major, I guess, differences from the bill that was presented last week. One of the, I guess, provisions in the bill last week that required us to remove 2 of the maths and 2 of the sciences from the requirements of a specific pathway for a high school diploma. But this bill would actually require that the State Department of Education would kind of determine those qualifications. And so, and the reason why we did that was because we wanted to make sure that all students had the right to post-secondary education, to make sure that they have the ability to, if they decide to change their pathway, that they had the ability to do that. And that was one of the major changes. It also included the State Department to solicit the help of a lot of stakeholders, whether it's post-secondary or education advocacy group, that to kind of help create those policies as well. It also goes on to say that when we talk about these pathways and these different diplomas, not different diplomas but different pathways, that we want to make sure that all of the students have the opportunities and that these pathways would create consistent and rigorous expectations for all students that are trying to graduate from high school. And so those are some of the major changes that's in the bill now. And it also would keep the short-term credentials from the community colleges in place. It also would still provided through by funding. It also would give opportunities to upgrade career centers for those larger communities, for them to have their own facilities. I know in Lowndes County, we have one facility that actually helps both schools that's in both high schools that are in the district. And so one other provision, I think this is the last one, that wasn't included in the previous bill, that the State Department of Education shall collaborate with the State Workforce Board to conduct a reoccurring return on investment analysis. And I think this is very important. I think because it kind of gives us an opportunity to kind of track what we're doing and see if it's working. And if it doesn't work, we can always come back and try to make the necessary changes to try to get it where it needs to be. So with that, I would open it for any questions that anyone may have.
I want to, on the sponsor's behalf, apologize to our committee that we didn't get the sub sooner. We were working on it up until the committee, but the sponsor did a great job of explaining the changes. I was very concerned if you're going to have the same diploma and then you're going to have weaker qualifications to get to it, that it really wasn't the same. And I want to thank you for working. And I wanted to let the committee know as well that we've sent the changes and all to the Senate sponsor and to the Lieutenant Governor's office, and we continue to work with them, and that's why we're offering the sub, and I appreciate the sponsor working. Any questions for the sponsor? Representative Fairmore.
Yes, I know in the Senate version there was an amendment that was added that would, about the eligibility for admission to post-secondary institutions or public universities in the state, about whether requiring admissions to get into those schools. Is that language included in this sub, or is it?
It's really not included because what this sub does is suggest that we use a stakeholder group of education advocates to come up with what those recommendations are, so that we actually look at which are those career tech programs that would slide into those graduation requirements, and do we want to actually change our graduation requirements so that we're not deciding that really here in the legislature, we're letting education advocate groups decide that.
I understand that part, but what I want us to be careful with is a student chooses a career path, they do that, then they decide they want to attend a 4-year institution or even further in a 2-year different category, that we're not putting them at a disadvantage in enrolling in a 4-year school. But I'd like to continue to work to make sure that we ensure that.
Yes, I would like that too, and that is actually the purpose of all of the changes that we made in the sub.
Thank you, Ms. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Drummond.
In the bill, it talked about they will only have to take, and I'm trying to see whether they will only have to take 2 math and 2 science.
That has been.
That's not in the sub.
That has
Oh, it's
been
not in
changed.
the sub. Well, see, I hadn't had a chance. I read
That's not in
the
the
other
sub.
one.
Sub's in front of you. Yeah.
Where is the sub? So you took that out?
Yes.
Yes, I think the State Department of Education would actually determine those qualifications.
Okay, so that was my question.
Yes.
So they will determine the qualifications. Now, my other question is, and I think it's piggybacking on Representative Paramore, because if those students are not taking an adequate amount of math and science, is that going to put them at a disadvantage, or will it put that school at a disadvantage? Because I'm going back to test scores. Will those scores be excluded or included?
I think basically they will be given the same state assessment test, but the State Department would kind of, based on what those assessment tests are, I think the State Department will create those classes that will qualify for those pathways, and kind of model it with what the state assessment tests are. If I'm making.
You're making a little bit, but there again, does it not put that student at a disadvantage? I mean, it's still going to be reported overall, correct?
I don't think it does, because based on those qualifications that the State Department actually put in place, I think they're going to be based on the state assessment test as well. because right now I think all of the state assessment tests are based on the curriculum that the students actually take now, and I think this would be the same identical thing.
To answer the question too, I think that the reason that we're not just eliminating 2 maths and 2 sciences in this bill. We're actually asking for the stakeholder group to make recommendations of what changes do we need to make in the graduation policy, so that we're not deciding that today. So we can't decide what they're going to need to do about testing until they make their recommendations of how we need to change those requirements. Does that make sense? The intent of the bill is to set up that group that we look at how do we best formulate different pathways to get to better workforce
Well,
things.
excuse me, Madam Chair, in my what you just said, it does change the entire content of the bill of the, yeah.
This bill doesn't take away 2 maths and science as the substitute. This bill sets up a stakeholder group, if you look in section 2, that would look at graduation requirements and flexibilities that would keep our graduation diploma strong and consistent and rigorous, but using other pathways like career tech programs that follow in there. So instead of just removing requirements, it would let this group decide which courses are good replacements for those requirements. Does that make sense?
I think what you're saying makes sense, but again, I'm looking at this bill, and it changes this bill.
It does.
And so that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, it reaches the same goal as this bill. We're doing the same thing. We're just looking at how we go about it a little bit different.
The sponsor is okay with that?
I am.
Representative Morris.
I don't really rightfully have a question. I just got a statement. We just keep talking about the pathways to going to a 4-year institution, which we all know that a lot of people are not going to 4-year institutions. Some of us sit and make laws, and we haven't attended 4-year institutions. But I know a lot of people that finished 9th grade and when they got their GED and still went to a 4-year college. So taking away the 2 maths that we rightfully don't pretty much need, unless you're gonna go to those colleges, or those 2 sciences that was actually taken away, and I don't really think somebody just up and pull those 4 credits out of the air to just take them away. So when we talk about college, going to college and making a pathway for our young people to actually move forward in what it is that they want to do. I just want to say thank you for putting the hard work in, and thank you for carrying the bill. And I actually like the first bill, but I still support this bill.
Thank you, Representative Morris. Representative Estes.
Let me echo her remarks and thank the sponsor for bringing the bill. I like the bill. I like what we're trying to accomplish here. I'm a very rabid supporter of career tech training. Not everyone needs or desires to go to a traditional 4-year institution. So I'm grateful we're doing that. I guess I'm just going to sit back and depend on the workforce. I'm going to sit back with a bucket of popcorn and a Mountain Dew and just watch how this all comes to play, because there's not, Mr. Smith can testify, Representative Smith as a principal, there's only so many hours in the day, and to make way for some of this additional career tech learning to take place, something's got to go. So what is going to have to go? And yet we don't want to drop math and science. And I'm not for dropping the math and sciences, because that creates a lot of higher level thinkers, more so, with all due respect, me being a history minor, and I love history, math and science is really what creates that higher level analytical thinking. So I'm grateful for the bill, and I think we're definitely on the right path. It's just making all the puzzles fit within the time constraints of the day. That's what I'm going to be interested to see how it comes about.
Thank you. Representative Smith.
Well, I would take exception a little bit with that. Math and science does create higher level thinkers, but there's a tremendous amount of higher level thinking that goes into technology, into health, and many of these other areas that create pathways to employ. So I kind of go back, and in the early 90s, there were town meetings held or regional meetings held with industry to ask industry what they wanted education to produce. And my recollection, which is pretty good about this, was they wanted the young people who graduated to be able to read, write, do math, read a ruler, look at a blueprint, and at least know it's an aerial shot of a drawing there. And from that, they also went on to say the soft skills needed are be on time, work all day, don't steal, treat your fellow workers the same. Things sound like to me should have been taught at home, but anyway, so from that, the State Department made a decision, and guess what they did? They added 2 more maths and 2 more sciences. So where we're going back to is where we were in the early 90s, so that some of these young people can get some skills that are beneficial to them in the workforce. And so I applaud the fact of your bill. I hate that we're making this decision. I wish education was making this decision, coming to us saying we need these pathways, which some of those pathways can be created by that young person taking algebra in the 8th grade, geometry in the 9th grade. You can get 4 maths there. So they can still get the courses, but when they as a 15-year-old start to make a decision, they're without a tremendous amount of help from their parents, they don't know exactly which way to go, and then all of a sudden they change their mind. So I think it gives us some pathways that help individuals.
Madam Chairman, can I just clarify real quickly that I must have misstated what I was trying to say. For the representative, I agree with Representative Smith wholeheartedly. Believe me, I believe Career Tech does create that higher level thinking, and I was not meaning to imply at all that I was not saying that at all. But I'm fully in support of the process.
And I wanted to respond also that that's what Section 2 does, is it asks those stakeholders that are education to come up with that flexibility. Representative Fincher.
I just had a quick comment. I think we're all in favor of stronger career tech, everyone up here in this panel. My question is, I come from a very small school, and when you start discussing subjects that can replace math and science, I'd like for you to consider the faculty you have in those small schools. And a lot of those small schools only have maybe 2 classes that go through, or some of them even 1 class that all the students are in. And I want to ask about the practicality in a small school of attempting to do some of this, I guess.
I would think that, employing those the State Department of Education, those stakeholders that we are employing in this bill, that they would take all of that in consideration, and if there are issues with that, if they would provide additional funding to kind of help with that issue.
I think also in the bottom of Section 3, lines 97 through 99, and so it actually talks about maybe even working together within a reasonable distance. So I think that kind of could potentially help that too. Mm-hmm. Representative Woods.
Within the stakeholder group that's referenced in the sub, and I'm probably overlooked it, but is the community college system a part of that stakeholder group?
Post-secondary would include 2 and 4.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Morris. We need to adopt the sub. Okay, we have a motion to adopt the sub. Do I hear a second? Second by Representative Estes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any other questions for the sponsor? Do I hear a motion?
Move to give the bill a favorable report.
Move to give the substitute a favorable report by Representative Drummond, second by Representative Morris. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The bill is given a favorable report as substituted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee.
Next, I'm going to call House Bill 278. Susan, you can stay there if you want. Okay. You can do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And I'm under the impression also, Mr. Clerk, that our public hearing has been withdrawn. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman and committee. And I'm here to present another tech school bill, actually. This is HB 278, which allows homeschoolers or non-traditional students to attend career tech programs in public schools. And this program would be implemented similarly to the Tim Tebow rule that allows homeschool athletes to participate in public school sports. This bill was actually brought to me by one of my constituents. One of my sheriff deputies' son is a homeschooler, and he really doesn't have plans to go to college, but he wants to work and he wants to learn, and he wanted to go to Shelby County's career tech program, but he wasn't allowed to go. They just didn't have a program for homeschoolers to participate. They had not elected to implement that program. So this bill calls for the State Board of Education to adopt rules to administer this program, and for each local Board of Education to adopt a policy reflecting the requirements of this section. Of course, each local school board's guidelines and policy would differ based on the programs that they offer. State superintendents and school boards associations have no objections to this bill. Thus, the public hearing was withdrawn. I think we answered all their questions. I'm expecting a friendly amendment to come forth, and I'll be happy to address any questions that y'all might have.
Does anyone have the amendment? Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have the amendment. One of the portions of the amendment, I'll just make a quick comment before I actually read the entire amendment on this. But this involves any career tech center that would be a full-time school, that this would allow for them to be excluded, that is, not required then to accept these students. They can make that decision at the local level. But I'll go on through the other parts that are incorporated into this amendment. Beginning on line 11, this would be replacing line 11 on page 1 with the following. This bill would authorize homeschool students enrolled as non-traditional public school students. Remove lines 14 through 16 on page 1. Replace lines 29 through 30 on page 2 with the following. Education programs at public schools to provide exemptions for full-time career and technical education schools, and 2. Replace lines 48 through 51 on page 2 with the following. Provided that the homeschool student enrolls as a non-traditional public school student. Replace lines 54 through 56 on page 2 with the following. The homeschool student enrolling as a non-traditional public school student. Remove lines 60 through 81 on page 3. Replace lines 85 through 86 on page 4 with the following. After current public school students are enrolled. Replace lines 92 through 97 on page 4 with the following. Item E, this act does not require any full-time, standalone career and technical education school to allow homeschool students to participate in its career and technical education programs. However, any full-time, standalone career and technical education school may choose to allow homeschool students to participate in its career and technical education programs pursuant to this act. Item F, any course fees or other costs assessed to a student participating in a career and technical education program pursuant to this act shall be considered a qualifying educational expense as defined by Section 2 of Act 2024-21, 2024 Regular Session, the CHOOSE Act. Section 3, this act shall become effective on August 1, 2024. With that, then I offer this amendment and would make a motion then to adopt the amendment.
Do I hear a second for the amendment? Representative Pascal has a second. Questions about the amendment? Representative Pascal.
I think
Did you have a, I thought you said you had a question. Representative Estes. Excuse me.
Before I comment, let me clarify with the vice chair to make sure I understand. Did the amendment change it to where now schools can opt into this? Or would all public schools who have career tech programs be obligated to create policy to allow homeschool students to do this? I just want to make sure I understood the amendment correctly.
I'll be glad to offer the way I understand this and then allow the sponsor to follow up as well with the way she understands. My understanding that the current bill would allow, would authorize homeschool students then the opportunity to enroll in these career technical education programs at their local public school. So this would authorize that, much like what you call the Tim Tebow Act, just like currently it does allow for the homeschool student to be able to participate in the extracurriculars at the school in which they've been zoned. So the one thing though with this amendment was we have in Baldwin County, which it may be the first in the state. I think we could be, but I'm not certain on that. But it's a full-time career technical school. So everything, the core courses, everything is there at that school. And so this was something that was a consideration going forward, because this means then that this would be, full-time throughout the entire day on that school. It's not like they're being bused back and forth or just there just for a set program or such. So with this then does not require a full-time career technical school, public school, to accept those students. This allows them that choice under this amendment. It does allow for any full-time career technical schools, so for any school going forward, if they choose that they want to allow participation, they can do that, but that would be their decision.
I was going to support the bill even if it had been mandatory, simply because we all know we've got to create a workforce. We have other bills coming through the process this time to try to address our workforce shortage issue. I do have concern as a former school board member, and it's ironic my friend and colleague, Representative DuBose, had brought up the Tim Tebow Act. I was against that in the process because I've never thought public education should be a buffet to where people come along and decide, well, I want to participate in that. I do not want to participate in that, but I'll take one of those and two helpings of that, but I'm not going to touch any of this. And I've always been fearful of that. And so I did not even support the athletic process in this several years ago. And I'm just concerned about us allowing people to pick and choose which parts of public education they want to participate in. Not that the homeschool students are any less important, not that we don't represent them, not that we don't love them, not that we don't support their parents and want to see their children do extremely well. But I don't think public education was originally intended to be a buffet from which people choose the parts they like and just simply pass on the parts that they don't.
Representative Drummond.
And I don't know if it's for Representative Baker, Vice Chair, or for the sponsor question, and I want to make sure I'm getting clarity on the amendment. 36 through 43 on page 2. Am I understanding correctly that if there is a public school that offers full-time standalone career and technical education, they can either choose not to have that homeschooler, or they can choose to have a homeschooler? It's their choice. That's correct? So they will have the choice, right? Okay.
That is correct. If I would add on to that, then this actually stimulated. I was somewhat the one that reached out to Representative DuBose as her bill then came into existence. I did have in my one of the two counties I represent, then Baldwin County, which we will have coming online in the fall for the first time. That we're very excited. This is a full-time, standalone then career technical school, high school, and which we've already had as of December 31 in the applications. Then the school then was set up then to be able to accommodate 750 students. We've already had 1,000 students already apply for this, so something that we're very excited about. But this will come online in August in terms of a operational school, and so that was the genesis of this amendment, was for that. But there could be other schools around the state that begin to move in that direction as well.
Okay, I got a couple of other questions, and I don't know if it's Representative DuBose or you, Vice Chair. That student, that homeschooler, is that student's academic history in whatever school that they're under, will that come into play if they choose to opt in or opt them out?
Yes, it could. In fact, each local school will make its own guidelines according to that, and they may require prerequisites depending on what type of technical or career program they're going to enter in. And since each school has their own type of career tech program, each school district will need to implement their own policies for that. And I expect there may be times when they want to look at grades, they want to look at the courses that they've taken, and those could very well be a requirement to enter in.
Okay, next to last question. In F, and if I'm understanding this correct, if a public school student is assessed whatever fees it is for that career technical program, the same would apply to that homeschooler, correct?
That's right. A lot of them have materials, fees.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my, next to the last,
That one.
I know. October is in the original bill. This is August. Is that you doing it on a school year?
Yeah, we thought about that and intentionally put August in there because we'd like the opportunity for kids to participate this school year.
And I know in the physical note there, and that is my last question. In the physical note, there was not any assessment, I mean, how much it was going to cost. Do you all have a better idea of what that is? And if so, can you share it with us? Because I'm like Representative Ellis. I don't like public education being a buffet. We don't think it's good enough,
I
but
agree.
we want to go and take what we think is good in public education and yield from it.
I agree, and we need to be careful as we are doing this. You know, there's only 370 homeschool athletes in the whole state that are participating, so we don't think there's going to be a tremendous amount. That's the closest guideline that we have is with our homeschool athletes that are participating. There's 370 of them statewide. I don't know if that's a guideline. It's hard to know exactly how many homeschoolers would choose to participate in this, but I don't see it being just a tremendous amount, because if you even look at what percentage of our kids are even homeschoolers, and then what percent of those are going to be of the age, and which percent of those are going to want to do career tech. So you're getting narrowed down to just not a huge amount, but we'll find out, you know, over a couple of years. I mean, and it'll take a while for people to even realize this opportunity is available.
Representative Smith.
A question is, will these individual students be there all day, or will they still be homeschooled for a portion of their schooling and then have their maybe pathways area at this
That's right.
school?
They won't be at the school all day. They will be home, and then they will go to school for whatever portion of time is necessary for them to complete. You know, if a school has a welding program and they actually leave the main campus, go over to this career tech campus for like maybe 2 or 3 hours a day. And so that's the amount of time that those homeschoolers would be there, whatever is necessary for the particular program that they're in, but it wouldn't be all day.
Okay. I love the wording that Representative Estes uses. Today, we have considered allowing individuals that do not attend public school to play against our public school teams. And now we're going to let them come pick that a la carte off the buffet of, you know, of a good technical pathway area. We're going to allow them to do that. Why don't they just come go to school with us? That's kind of my question.
Well, that could happen. You know, think about it. These homeschoolers might try out this public school for these classes and decide they like it there. That could very well happen. But, you know, I think that we have to do this slowly and intentionally, and we know that workforce is a huge part of our mission, our legislative mission, our statewide mission, to get kids introduced to jobs. And tech programs are getting, you know, they're becoming more and more valuable. We know that. We know this is a necessary skill. So I think this is something that is going to benefit, it's going to be mutually beneficial to the student, to the state. I think this is going to be a mutual beneficial program to all.
I want to remind us that we are, need to be out of this room very soon. And we have 3 more questions. So Representative Baker, I'm asking us to be very concise.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, this this involves compensation then to the public school. And so with Ryan Hollingsworth here, you can maybe then help then address this. And my understanding is that for those crossover homeschool students that might be participating in extracurriculars, that there is some type of number count where they fit into that is the attendance then. So if you might could address that. And then my question or concern would be, how does that flow with this, with the career technical education now being opened up as a sort of parallels type of opportunity, I guess using Representative Estes in the buffet style.
So back on the sports, they are actually enrolling in the school, and so they become a student there and counting the ADM number. So my understanding on the bill is they enroll here, and it will be treated very similar.
Very good. That was my understanding. I just want to make sure there was maybe the same parallel then compensation. Thank you so much for that. And then my last quick question. This is actually to the bill, and this would be on page 3, line 82. Page 3, line 82 on the bill, item C. In the event that a CTE program has limited enrollment capacity, a homeschool student who wishes to enroll in the CTE program shall be considered for enrollment in the same manner as an enrolled student who attends the public school offering the CTE program. I did want to, I've got some little concerns with that, so we maybe need to address that word in some way. Let me sort of be clear what I have not identified to you yet. And that is, as I mentioned just earlier in a brief commentary about the upcoming school in Baldwin County, 750 slots for students, and yet with over 1,000 applicants. So they will do this by lottery.
Oh, okay.
And so I have some concerns with that because if to me, they need to have that opportunity, that is, for those students that are already enrolled in their school system and such with that. So if they're treated the same as now, it puts that homeschool student in the lottery along with, that is, those others. So I have a little bit of mild concerns with that language there, and so we maybe need to.
Well, I thought we fixed that in the amendment, because I have in my notes that it says after current public school students are enrolled. So the public school students have first dibs. And
okay, I just wanted to make sure. I had concerns because with this being a lottery, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think
Representative Hope Jones.
And I think Representative might have already asked this, but I'm confused on the money. So if they're a homeschooler, where does because there are fees, not just if I'm taking welding, I don't just do a welding fee. There are expenses to have a welding program. So what are they going to be charged for that?
they're charged the same as a public school student would be charged. So if there's a materials fee for welding.
No, not the fee. We are paying a lot of money to have the welding course. So they are considered a public school student, so they're.
Enroll. There's some ADM, what they call this ADM money, Alabama. I'm not sure what that exactly stands for. Daily membership funds that would follow that student. And the school would get credit for it.
Representative Morris.
So, real quick, I took cosmetology in high school. So we left school and we went to Mavec, but that counted with my credits for my diploma. Are they getting a diploma from the school with that? Or is it they just going to take some classes?
They're just going to take some classes.
Because when we left high school, we had credits enough to go to our community college where they actually transferred. So with those courses that they're taking, would they transfer to the community college, or are they just going in there just taking a course that's not going to even benefit them later?
Yeah, I didn't address the credits that they would get on this, and I can't even answer. I can't even answer that. I don't know what they would get as a homeschooler. How all that. This would count as a homeschool class. I don't know. Can anybody answer that? I don't even know. Yeah.
Okay, so the pathway with that, they'll just transfer, like give them a certificate of completion. If they accept it, they accept it. If they don't accept it, they don't accept it. And then if they decide later that they want to go to post-secondary after they attend the technical college, then they can go that route. My whole point in saying that, because I'm okay with it, is because of the 2 maths and the 2 sciences. But go ahead.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the amendment to House Bill, whichever one we're on right now, 278. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bill is amended. Do I hear a motion? A movement to give a favorable report on the House Bill 278 as amended by Representative Baker, second by Representative Pascal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bill is given a favorable report, and because of timing, we are going to carry, and it's a Senate bill, over to next week. We are adjourned.
Very good.